welcome to Relate to You, and welcome to another episode. Today, in the spirit of starting a new season, we want to talk about life groups and this new, not new thing, but this very exciting what is it? An exciting season that we're in, where our whole church, we're talking about life groups and these small groups that start at home, and where people get to learn more about God and how to form a relationship with God, how to know yourself through the eyes of God as well. So we'll be talking about that, and I think my first question would be for you, Kes, what is a life group?
So to me, a life group is a group of people. A lot of the times it's categorized by age or depending on, what you're involved in, just women, just, junior high, whatever. And you meet at a home, and oftentimes there is a host, and usually it's a person that has, owns the house or the apartment. They're in charge of making everybody feel welcome. And then you have a life group leader, a person who's in charge of giving the Bible study. And it can vary from, there's a lesson plan. Sometimes, you focus on a specific lesson. Other times it's, we're going to do something more social, more like fellowship. And so everybody tends to just talk. And so I see that as what a life group can be. And I did participate in one a couple years ago. And so that is my connection to it.
Which, if you're a true fan, there is a beautiful story about the time where she used to be the leader of a life group. Please go back into, I think it was our first embarrassing stories.
No, it's our second one.
Our second one, when we were still Hear Me Out. Guys, go check that story out. Please, you cannot miss it.
Or you can.
No, you shouldn't.
But
it's one of my favorites.
Clearly, I was a part of a life group when I was in high school, early college. So senior year, early college. And it was that age group of youth that was in the life group. But currently our church is going through a transition where it's very common in a lot of churches where they have midweek Bible studies at home. There's something for, just different age groups in different houses. But for some reason at our church, it's kind of taken a while to kind of pick up. Mm-hmm. And right now that's where we're at. And so our Wednesday services are only once a month. And we are now meeting in the homes, and it is very different.
Very different. I think.
How do you feel?
I think what it is that it's not a new concept. Los grupos células, como le decíamos. I grew up in células. I grew up in. La hermana tenía un estudio aquí. Nosotros teníamos un estudio en nuestra casa.
Yeah.
I grew up with that. Entonces, los grupos celulares I don't think that's a new thing. I think for our church, it's a new thing of like, we're going full blown this time.
Yes.
And we're, so much so that we decided, let's meet at home. Instead of having midweek services, let's meet at home.
Right.
And I think that's why it's new. Yes, I miss Wednesday services, of course. I miss the fellowship y todo eso. But I also see the purpose in starting at home.
Yeah.
I think vivimos en un tiempo donde el hogar se ha vuelto
secular.
Sí, no nada más eso, sino se ha vuelto como ya no tiene la misma importancia que antes. Y la sociedad, o sea, ahorita la sociedad te está haciendo pensar, first of all, you don't need your parents. Porque ahorita, if your parents don't affirm what you believe, they can take the children can be taken away from those type of from parents. So that already, ya te da una idea de que, okay, so you're telling little kids, if your dad doesn't align with your beliefs, that's it. That's it. You can emancipate yourself or whatever. So entonces I feel como o luego mujeres, there's a lot of women that don't want to get married, don't want to have kids. So they don't want to create homes. And so I think that the idea of bringing life into these groups in a home setting it's very powerful porque nos está diciendo es en la casa donde empieza.
Right.
Porque clearly society and the government is attacking the home because
Yes.
they know, the enemy knows that it's at home where it all starts or
Right.
where it all just crumbles. Entonces, I do think que hay valor en abrir nuestros hogares para que venga la palabra de Dios.
I think, it's like you mentioned, it's definitely not a new concept because it's how the church began. If we go back to the book of Acts, that is how the church of Christ started. They met in their homes, they, worshiped together, they ate together, they fellowshiped together. And that's what, they grew, now it's in a different home. And I think that this new this concept that is being presented to our church is challenging us to, okay, it's not just us. We're not just the same people meeting every week. Now we have two decisions. The first decision is to get involved because let's start there. It's difficult. I mean, now that we don't have Wednesday services, I'm going to be completely real with you. As a married woman who's not in my parents' home anymore, it's up to Joel and I
Right.
if we're going to participate or not. And when you are in your parents' home, it's very different because it's like, well, my mom is forcing me to go to church. My mom is pushing me to go to this youth event, to this service or whatever. But when you are an adult and you don't have anybody on your back but your own conscience, but your own, Holy Spirit guiding you, it's then at that point of like, am I going to go? Am I going to get involved? Am I going to align myself with the vision that our pastor puts out? And am I going to be a part of it? And so it was one of those things for us that, we personally didn't feel ready just yet to host one and lead one just yet, but we just joined one. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I was like,
Yeah.
I have been in a life group before, clearly. I have led one before. A lot of our stories, a lot of my growing pains as far as like my Pharisee years, it comes from, the life group. But now this is a different Kez, going to a life group as an adult. And I loved it. I really loved it.
I think that's what it is. You were nervous because you are now a different Kez.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, when you were a leader, you were also a leader of that same age group.
Yeah.
Kids that probably thought the same thing you did, or that you thought, or probably went to some of those growing pains as well. So it made sense. And then I think also what's interesting about life groups is that, I mean, maybe not so much, but if you think about it, some of these life groups could be people that you were also in that group
Right.
once at some point, or that you grew up watching. And so now to be in that environment of like, okay, now we're very mature, or hopefully we're mature in the Lord. How do we take this, right?
Yes.
How do we navigate a study group or a Bible study together, now that we're not teenagers, now that we're not, trying to put up pretenses or anything.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's different.
It's different, but I think that, again, like, there's seasons to things, and you and I have had these conversations of like how when you grow up in church, you go through different highs and lows.
Right.
And I think that the life group is a perfect way to test one's maturity in their spiritual walk, because it's so easy to go on a high. You go to a really powerful service and, you walk away with
Camp.
that. You go to camp, and it's like, it's camp, we're on fire, but that's not the day-to-day. A service is not the day-to-day. The event that happened is not the day-to-day. The day-to-day is a Wednesday at 7:00 where you went to a 9-to-5 job and you're exhausted and you just cooked dinner. And now you have to make a decision. Am I going to watch TV and go to bed and do nothing? Or am I going to push myself to go to a life group and actually study with another group of people? Because that's another thing that I was...
yes. Are you preaching tonight?
I was also witnessing in the life group yesterday. I'm like, I'm seeing all these benefits, to being in the life group. When you go to church, it's so easy to get lost. And I say it in this way. there really isn't, maybe for you, because you're still working at church, but I'm no longer working at church. It's so easy to be unnoticed. And I say it in this sense. Nobody is there with a checklist. Did Kez go to church today?
Oh, I see.
Does that make sense? I mean, unless you have people, like maybe you'd notice because I'm in your life, but there really isn't people that are like, oh my God, why didn't you come to church? Why weren't you there? But in a life group that is not really like big and you've committed to it, oh, you're going to tell. You're going to tell when you didn't
Tell
show up.
me
You're going to
about
tell when that, family, that couple didn't show up. And now you're like, ¿y qué pasó? ¿Por qué no estabas ahí? And so there's a new level of accountability and commitment in the sense of we're much smaller. It's much more noticeable. But at the same time, there's a new level of intimacy. And it's something that, going to college, I remember being in a classroom when there was like 100 students, but then being in a classroom when there was like 15. Huge difference.
Right.
When there's a classroom for 100 students, you can barely get a meeting with your professor. And it's generalized. When you are in a meeting with, or you have a professor and there's only 15 students, I could literally be like, hey, I have a question.
Right.
And you can see me.
And there's the attention.
There's the attention.
Undivided attention.
So both are extremely important. I mean, I'm not here to say that Sunday services and Wednesday services are not like important. I'm just also seeing that there's a lot of positives to having a life group,
Right. Well, speaking about accountability in a life group setting, I think it's very interesting that you say that, because depending on I agree 100%, depending on the spiritual maturity, but also I feel like depending on the age group, you're going to see people that rather go somewhere else. That rather do something else because they don't. I feel like
have to know your audience.
True, definitely. But I feel like there are people that it became a routine to go to, and I know it sounds awful, but it became a routine to go on Wednesdays to church. Like, Wednesdays is for church and we're going to go.
Right.
Now that you take that away, yes, it's up to you to will yourself to go to that life group, to will yourself, hey, I made a commitment, I'm going to show up. But not a lot of people will take that. I mean, I say this for myself. I got used to, the first 2 weeks that we didn't have a service, I was like, oh, yes, I get to rest. I don't have nothing else to do, wonderful. And so now that we're trying, I have 2 life groups. And now that we're trying to get those 2 life groups going, I get those that don't arrive because they rather do something else.
Yeah.
I understand it 100%. It's like, I rather go, with my friends. I rather stay home and watch TV.
Yeah.
And I get that comfortable that comfort zone. I get it. So it really is a test of like, how much do I want it? How much do I want to fellowship with others? How much do I want to listen to the word from so-and-so?
I was going to say, for the record, we say fellowship a lot. Sorry, Christian language. It just means socialize.
Socialize. So, I mean, that's for the people that already believe, or for the people that already have somewhat of a relationship with God. But for those that that don't, or for those that are looking for one, I do think that all those benefits that you were mentioning, that undivided attention, that accountability on the other end of like, how much do I know I need God in my life? And I'm going to go because I'm just hungry to know.
Right.
I'm just hungry for someone to quench this thirst. I'm just hungry to know, something different.
Yeah.
Like a different outcome. I've been trying the same thing. Maybe something different will give me different results. And so for those of you that might want to have that, DM us.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think it's something that we need to stop, like, and I'm going to be real, I think it's so easy at times when change comes our way for us to be negative and for us to be like, why did this happen? And why are we changing what works? What there's a system in place, People don't like change. And I know that with this change, you know, some people are all for it and are all excited. And then there are people that are like, why do they take, you know, Wednesday services? But to me, where I find myself feeling both at times, as I mentioned, no voy a mentir que, ay, sí, en cada célula quiero estar. I think that when we are negative about something, it only really, it reveals how much we are disconnected to the kingdom mindset.
Ooh.
Because the kingdom mindset at its core is getting closer to God and preaching the gospel. So if you are negative about an event, those two things are out of whack. You're not focusing on getting closer to God, and you're not focusing on preaching the gospel. You're focusing on a secondary item that has nothing to do with that. It's the lights that didn't go right. It's the sound that didn't go right.
Today, that one teacher is teaching.
Exactly.
You know, so and so is teaching. I'd rather not.
I don't want to listen to this preacher, you know, whatever. It's a secondary, it's not a priority, you know?
Yeah.
But when you really are passionate about the vision of like, I'm going to do anything that gets me closer to God, I'm going to do anything that preaches the gospel of Jesus, I don't care what it is, I'm going to be a part of it. And that's hard to do when we live in a world about me, what's comfortable, what's convenient, what's according to my schedule. And so I think that this concept is challenging us as Christians. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about a couple weeks ago about sacrifice. How much are we willing to deny ourselves to get involved into this mission? How much are we willing to involve ourselves to stop giving ourselves excuses and maybe even being in denial about Jesus is coming?
Oof.
And are we ready for that? Are we ready to face our maker? Are we ready to, can we say that we're living holy lives? Can we say that we're living a life that is pleasing to the Lord? And we don't want to think about that. We want to think of the momentary comfort.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, going back to life groups, we're preaching life groups today. You can't, you know, get that. You know, and I want to ask you, because your family has done life groups for years.
Yes.
Years. As a matter of fact, you guys know I've been friends with the Garcia clan for years. Since I was little, you guys have met on Mondays.
Yes.
And you've had prayers. And you have had, you know, one of my first impressions I had of Lula was because, ay, Lula dio un estudio bien poderoso. Dios la usa grandemente, you know, and blah, 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 on a Monday. And the way, you know, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, yeah, she's intimidating.
Oh
like,
my goodness.
Gosh, she must have really gone. And she even, you know, connected it with psychology, no sé qué. And I'm like, okay, wow, this is a family, not even, you know, where you could say, okay, there's a lot of other people. It's like a family's meeting together on a Monday to give each other a study.
Yeah. Yeah. No, before our church was doing the Monday night prayers, we were a long time doing that with my family. For years, yes, for years. And then sometimes I think there was a time where we changed it to Fridays. And then right now, because we're trying to go with that the vision, we're really focusing. Okay, no families. Let's open it up to neighbors. Let's open it up to friends. Let's open it up to for example, on Fridays, I have another life group, and that one is open to my nephews. And we're trying to ask them to invite their friends. So I'm going to be teaching to the juniors. And so, no, actually, no, they're youth. They're not juniors. They're youth. Yeah, because my nephew is in high school y el otro ya está en el college. So it would be youth. And
good luck.
However, a couple months ago, well, actually no, like a month ago, I went to a life group workshop, where they obviously they're trying to drill in you why the importance of life groups. Y una de las que fueron, una de las conferencistas, porque a las mujeres nos apartaron, porque, la idea es que sí, we want to share the gospel, we want to share the good news, we want to bring life into people's homes, pero es bien diferente de una mujer a un hombre.
Yeah.
Es bien diferente. Entonces, es diferente in the sense of like, if you're married, and this workshop was geared towards married women, it was more like, how are you going to support your husband in his leadership with the life group, right? Or how are you going to open your home but also give your husband that like position of, you take over, honey, or todo eso. Entonces, pero a lot of the recurrent theme I kept seeing in all of the conferences was, we need to save our homes. The world is out there trying to destroy them. We need to do that much more work to save them.
Yeah.
That much more, like, nos tiene que doler que haya hogares rotos. Y no me estoy refiriendo a hogares rotos de que se divorciaron los papás. No es nada más así como se están rompiendo ahorita los hogares.
There's disconnection.
Es disconnection.
There's
No nada más eso, sino es el hecho de que ahorita el gobierno se quiere meter tanto en el hogar.
Yeah.
So much so that, again, I go back to the same thing. Ya te van a quitar a tus hijos si tú no les, if you don't play into their fantasies, if you don't play into their delusions of, I'm they, them, or, I'm so-and-so, and I'm this, and I'm that.
Right.
Entonces, there's, in Canada, I think there's already a bill where they can take away your kids if you don't affirm them. And to me, it's
here. It's already happening.
There you go.
Here.
It's already happening here. It's insane. O sea, entonces, for me, it's like, that just goes to show, el enemigo está tras los hogares.
100%.
Porque es ahí donde va a crecer, donde o se destruye una familia entera, o salen más cosas bellas de ahí. Entonces, muchas de estas mujeres decían, mis abuelos se convirtieron en una célula. Y ve, 3 generations after, and we're here. And so that idea of like, it's possible that in one of my células se salve toda una generación.
100%.
3 generaciones, 5 generaciones, 10 generaciones. Entonces, when I got that drill in my head of like, solo Dios sabe cómo puede usar una célula al punto de que, no sé, a lo mejor yo estoy siendo una delusional ahorita, pero who knows, a lo mejor el pastor de nuestra iglesia sale de mi célula. In the future, pues, cuando mis hijos estén grandes.
Sí.
O el bishop, el future bishop, sale de tu célula. O sea, esas cosas se quedaron grabadas en mi mente porque era lo que seguía viendo en estas mujeres. Era, mi mamá se convirtió en una célula, mi abuelo en una célula, y así. Tú dices, wow, y de una célula se salvaron tantas vidas. Tanta gente viviendo en la gracia de Dios. Entonces eso dije, eso es lo que tenemos que hacer, porque el gobierno está el mundo ahorita está en el negocio de destruir el hogar, de destruir la idea de lo bonito que es tener hijos, que crear un hogar que le agrade a Dios. Y eso no va a cambiar. Entonces tenemos que hacer, como no va a cambiar, muchos dirían, pues entonces si no va a cambiar, ¿para qué estoy haciendo lo que estoy haciendo? Pero no, porque we go back to the same thing. Dios nos va a decir, ¿qué hiciste con lo que te di? ¿Qué hiciste con los dones que te di? ¿Para qué trajeras gente a mí? Para que no te vengas vacío.
Y además siento que hay mucho valor en tener una comunidad.
Right.
Obviamente tenemos nuestra iglesia, pero como acabo de decir, que en un grupo pequeño tienes una comunidad. Y siento como que muchas de las veces es bien fácil, como te digo, ir a la iglesia y regresar a tu vida y nadie sabe lo que estás haciendo. Y tus decisiones son tuyas. No tienes a nadie que esté allí viendo si eres contable con lo que deberías hacer. Entonces, siento que todo esto nos está como challenging us.
Yeah. Retándonos
to step it up
Yeah.
as a couple, as a married couple, as a single person, as a youth, as a parent, you know, if you're bringing your kids to a life group and they're all, you know, together and worshiping, or they're all together listening to a life study, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to now, oh, we're going to do this. This isn't our norm. This isn't something that we do during the week. Well, now it is. You know, and I think about it because I grew up with parents that were very involved in the church. Monday was something, Tuesday was something, Wednesday was something, you know, and there was always people in the house. There was always, you know, hermanos que venían, and you know, células was something that I don't think at that time se llamaban células, pero de que habían personas en la casa y iban a hablar de Dios, y en algún punto se iban a poner a cantar, se iban a poner a decir un versículo, decir un testimonio. That was a norm. But nowadays, in our generation, that isn't a norm. It isn't a norm that when you gather together, you talk about God. Let's be real. You talk about your job. You talk about where you've been lately. You talk about how much money you're spending. You talk about the latest thing on Instagram or what's happening in so-and-so's life. Where does God come up in the conversation?
Al final, cuando dices, pero who are we to judge? I'm going to pray for them.
Entonces, I think that in general, even within our culture, I think things need to change.
Yeah.
I think things need to change for us to recenter ourselves back to, why are we here? Why are we doing this? You know, even I see this in my own family. Like, I remember, you know, es algo que tenemos que obviously work on, pero cuando mi papá, he was here, I feel like we made a lot more effort to pray together as a family. And I know my mom would be like, she's one of those, like, no vamos a comenzar a comer hasta que haga una oración and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I have seen that recently, and I'm calling our sisters out. You need to do something about it, you know, because I do think that we've kind of, you know, we still love the Lord, and we still, you know, we're still Christian, but in many ways that has died of, you know, okay, you know, I prayed for my food and that's it, and I'll start eating, as opposed to we're going to stop and have a conscious moment that we're sitting together and let's acknowledge the Lord and let's give thanks, you know? I think that has changed. Entonces, all around, I think that as a generation, we're becoming colder and colder and less reverent to the things of God. And I think this is the step in the right direction. I think that this is the key, like you mentioned, centering it back to, it starts in the home. If you can get used to the presence of God being in your home, what can it do outside of it?
Yeah.
And then obviously, you know, the challenge of actually inviting someone that doesn't know Christ to a life group is the next step.
And that's a big challenge. That's a big challenge because you obviously don't want to be, you need Jesus. You know? Come to my house.
Yes.
But also, I mean, obviously, para mí es un poquito más difícil porque I'm surrounded by
people from church.
People from church, right? So yo no le puedo decir a otros, even though I would like to, necesitas a Jesús, you know? No puedo. Ven a mi life group. Te falta Jesús. No puedo. Pero, por ejemplo, I've started to think I could do it at the bank. You know, I could invite people at the bank. And
why are you laughing?
Inside joke, guys.
Someone in the bank needs Jesus.
Oh yeah. Anyway, and needs to go to my house. I'll invite that person. Anyway, and so for me, and then I thought, well, also maybe, yes, I'm surrounded by people that go to church. I'm surrounded by people that perhaps have their own life group. But also another way of encouraging, you know, is opening my life group and asking my sisters, my nephews, bring your friends. You know, invite your friends, which is how it's starting to pan out my life group on Fridays. They're bringing their friends. And now I'm in charge of how do I bring Jesus into their lives without them feeling like, how do I say this?
You try to shove it down the throat.
Yes. And that's hard because you're on fire. You want the joy that I have, I want for everyone to experience that joy. Because it's a joy that I don't have it because I have la ropa bonita, los zapatos bonitos, el dinero, todo. No, es porque Dios ya me lo dio. Que tengo momentos where I feel sad, where I feel disappointed, where I feel discouraged, 100%. And I think I'm
gonna feel it.
And I think I have the right to. Pero de todas maneras, cuando te enfocas en lo que tienes y no en lo que no tienes, te viene ese joy of like, gee, de todas maneras, God has been good. Y maybe more than half of that I don't deserve. So, cuando tienes ese excitement, quieres que todo el mundo lo tenga. Quieres que todo el mundo esté igual que tú. And while I think that's a good thing, that's a good feeling, that's a good motivation.
You need to learn how to manage it.
You need to learn how to manage it. Porque también lo que no quiero es decirle a un niño de 15, 16 años que a lo mejor no es la norma en su casa, decirle, pues tus papás. Pues es que, o sea, that's not going to work out for him, for this person. And so, for example, right now, my little nephew, he's not that little, but he's in high school, and he started to bring a friend over to our Sunday hangouts. So every Sunday, we get together with my family, we play volleyball. And so, he started to bring him. Y el otro día, el muchachito le dijo, I've never seen family that gets together every single Sunday to do anything, let alone play, volleyball. And so he's been coming consistently, and he likes it. And I thought, this is how it starts. They get they see a different type of family. They see a different dynamic in a family. We don't drink. We don't, we don't say bad words. We're not, we're doing something good, which is volleyball, having fun in a very good God-intended manner, I would say. And so next time que mi nephew le diga, ven on Fridays, I'm pretty sure he's going to be willing to, porque he's going to say, yeah, they have fun without drinking, without being, crazy, todo eso. I want to know what's up with this family, because
Garcia doesn't need more crazy. The Garcia clan does not need more crazy.
And he's told my nephew, my family doesn't do that. My family, si no están tomando, they don't have fun. They don't know how to have a conversation. And there's a lot of families.
Yeah.
I mean, Instagram está lleno de chistes of like...
The only time I open up is when I drink.
It's when I drink. Or, stuff...
The only time I'm romantic and I flirt is when I drink.
Or I mean, estos chistes de que esa birthday of a 5-year-old y todo el mundo con las coronas y con todo eso. Entonces, para mí eso es triste, porque yo crecí en un hogar donde no necesitamos el alcohol to have fun. Mm-hmm. No necesitamos estos excesos para saber que somos una loving family.
100%.
And so, cuando alguien lo ve, it gives them a different perspective. It gives them, it is possible to not drink and have fun.
And I also think, I think the reason why it works with you, with your family and for those that execute it properly is because, again, it's so natural. It's not like you have to stop and explain, have you noticed we don't drink?
Right.
Have you noticed we don't swear? No, it is just natural. And I think that's when it's more powerful, when someone can stop and say, I've noticed that you don't do this. I've noticed that you're different. I noticed that you behave in a different way. And why is that? Mm-hmm. And as opposed to the first thing you tell someone is like, have you been to church? Are you going to church? Or do you know I don't do that? I don't celebrate that. Mm-hmm. I can't believe people do that. That automatically rubs people the wrong way, because it's like, I wasn't asking, as opposed to, some kind of exposure, lead by example, Entonces, all in all, with these life groups, I think mainly, why we wanted to talk about this is because it's something that's happening in our church. It's something that we're not sponsored by the church, but at the same time, we are members of our church. And so we align with what is being brought to us. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're going to talk about it. Of course, we're going to be like, hey, if you haven't gotten involved in a life group and you are a Christian and this is something that your church provides, ask yourself why. Why am I not getting involved? And if you have no idea what this is and you want to get involved, DM us. We have an Instagram.
Yes.
And you can literally send us a message, and we can't obviously promote addresses and phone numbers, obviously, but there are ways that we can connect you to a life group, and there's just different things that we could do to connect people. And more than anything, I feel like this is like a time capsule video. This is our first video talking about life groups, and maybe in a couple of months, we could talk about this is what's happened in the life groups.
Fruit.
People have changed. People have been healed. This is how my life has changed since the life group. And I really want to see it through.
Yes.
Because even though I was a part of a life group, I was so young. I was so inexperienced and immature. And even though it was a blessing, there's a lot of things that I feel like if I could go back and do things differently, I would.
You would.
For sure.
For sure. If you're a true fan, you know which
what I'm
one.
talking about. I probably wouldn't have done that. Let's start there. One of the things that I go back and I'm like, I hate thinking about, is that, again, during that time, I had a really hard time relating with people because me creía la santa. I was like, I'm
La última coca en el
desierto. I remember that, because we were doing this, I went all out. I'm like, les voy a cocinar, vamos a hacer games, vamos a tener alabanza. Oh my God, it was so cringe. I remember this time that I put, I got our laptop and then I had lyrics and I had all the youth stand and read the lyrics and sing it. Do you know how awkward that is? You know how cringe that is? That you're going based off of a pista with letters and like in church, you're all singing like.
Wait, you're telling me that it's just the lyrics. There was no background.
Well, the music is there,
but no one's singing. Like
no one's singing. So like in my head it's like church. Like you have the music,
like a karaoke kind of thing.
Kinda, but it wasn't just one person singing. It was all of us looking at the lyrics from a little laptop on top of a stool, and we would sing, And then there were times where I did ask, a couple friends to like bring their piano, and then we would actually prepare something.
Ooh.
There was a couple times that I have this video where we went to a place nearby, and they have this very, very small amphitheater. And there was a place to like hook up a piano and so on. And we decided to just sing. And we were singing different Christian songs.
Nice.
And it was around that era, that time that we were, in the life group. And so, yes, though there were really good moments, there were a lot of moments that I go back to and I'm like, man, I wish that I had the understanding that I have now,
right.
And also it was during a period where a lot of people were growing up, graduating from high school, moving out of their parents' homes, people that had grown up with me in church that now were exposed to the world. And I was seeing a lot of different people getting pulled. And that was very hard for me because I was like, oh my gosh, like we all, last year we were in the life group and we were speaking in tongues in this living room. And now this person is nowhere to be found. Now they don't want anything to do with God.
Right.
Entonces, I think this time around, I'm like, God, I want to see this successfully through and through. I want to see what this looks like with, maybe not me in leadership, but me in support, or just to see something different now that I'm a different person,
right.
Entonces, that's pretty much, what I'm looking forward to, and I'm excited about it. It's like, I think my one of my last questions for you would be, as of right now, do you think that these life groups are going to be something that picks up quick? Or do you think it's going to take us time to build? What do you think is needed for us to get from point A to point B, which B being this is now a part of our culture?
I do think it's going to take time. I think if I'm not mistaken, some when I went to the workshop, some people were saying that sometimes to see fruit, you need to wait until like 3 years. You know, and so I think what it is that it's really hard. Well, maybe not so hard, because I did see a lot of people in the Spanish congregation. They wanted to open their homes. They were hungry to open their homes. They were hungry to have someone come in and impart the word. So I don't think it's so much about not having people willing to open their homes. I think what it is hard is that, or that could be hard, is that of inviting people, inviting those that, you know,
You're not just inviting someone to church, you're inviting someone to your
home. And not just to your home, but also you're inviting them to, ¿cómo te diré? Como, in a way, and this is just an analogy. In a way, you're setting a trap. You know, you're kind of like, come to my home. We're just gonna talk and have fun. And then once they arrive, it's like, necesitas a Jesús. You know, it's that of like, because we also want to have fellowship or socialize. You know, we want to let them know we're not here just to, it's exactly, you know, meterte a Jesús por todos lados. No, queremos también entablar una relación contigo. Queremos saber cómo estás, queremos saber cómo te podemos ayudar. Y como nosotros tenemos el antídoto, como nosotros tenemos la respuesta a todas tus dudas, tus problemas, tu angustia, tu dolor, todo eso, te lo vamos a ofrecer y ya es up to you to take it. I think that's the hard part. I think that's the hard part, porque tienes unos hermanos que they're very excited, como I was at some point. Y sí, te quieren meter a Jesús por todos lados, por los oídos, por los ojos, por la boca, por todos lados, you know? Y luego tienes a otros que they want to do that slow pace kind of thing. O sea, both ends, but they're gonna take time. Los que toman tiempo y los que arruinan a veces. Los que echan a perder por lo mismo.
No está maduro todavía.
Ajá.
No lo quieres.
Tienen buenas intenciones, pero we're impatient. We're impatient and we want to go, and I have the antidote. You know, I have the answer, take it.
Yo lo que siento que va a ser lo más difícil de todo esto, porque la verdad no creo que es invitar a alguien, porque yo siento que cuando tú invites a alguien, el ambiente cambia. Automáticamente realizas there's a new person. So things have to change, you know? The way that I speak to a group of people that already know about Jesus is very different. The questions that I ask, I'm asking because I know y'all have read your Bible and you know who parted the Red Sea.
We're assuming.
We're assuming, you know, but as opposed to a brand new person, you're like, okay, I'm going to change my method, right?
True.
What I think is going to be hard is consistency. Consistency, I think, is going to be the most difficult thing, not just for the leader and the host, but for those that are attending. Because just because one life group is great, now it's, okay, am I going to make the conscious effort again every single time? And it's very different porque, again, going back to the small group, though there's a lot of benefits, there's a lot of different challenges. You go to a church and it's dinner service, okay? You will literally sit down and you will be fed. You'll be presented a meal. Sorry. And, you know, you go to church and then there's a welcoming team and here's a little gift bag as a visitor. And, you know, there's worship for you. And then there's just a preaching prepared and an air conditioned, you know, building. And then, oh, here's I'm so sorry. We're cooking or something. You go to a life group and it's buffet service. You got to go get up and get your plate. So now it's you having to, I think, make it what it is, make the experience what it is. And I think that requires effort out of people, and that's going to be challenging, I think.
No, pues sí, ya cuando lo pones así, va a estar difícil. Definitivamente, we go back to what we were saying at the beginning, accountability. And we live in a society, in a young generation, where there's not a lot of that.
Convenience.
There's not a lot of accountability. Si van mis amigas, voy. You know? Si va quien a mí me gusta escuchar, voy. Pero si va a enseñar esta, no.
No voy.
Si no va esta, no, yo tampoco. Entonces, yes, there is a lot of like what's convenient to me.
Sacrifice.
You know, even the places sometimes. Ay, no, está bien lejos, ¿para qué voy a ir hasta allá?
Yeah.
Ay, no,
100%. Oh, that's why I really want to drive all the way over there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing the most already. I'm already doing the most. I get up early. I wake up tomorrow early.
Yeah.
Like, no puedo. And so, yeah, definitely we live in a world of like yo, me, and my needs and my time and how much I work, how much effort I put in. Pero es lo mismo que decías tú, we don't have that kingdom mindset. Queremos titles, queremos decir, oh, I'm the leader, I'm the deacon, I'm the minister, I'm so-and-so at church, I'm this and this.
Quita de eso.
Pero
Quiero la bendición.
Quiero la bendición, pero no quiero hacer el trabajo.
Exacto.
Pero no quiero ir, pero no quiero poner el effort. Pero, and so, yes, consistency, accountability, va a costar.
And as we're ranting about all of this, obviously we're talking about a life group with, the mindset that, those of you that are listening, a good amount of you are Christians that haven't connected yet, and hopefully after this video connect. But for those of you that are like, I don't know what this is, it's an excellent opportunity to find community, and it's an excellent opportunity for you to see a different dynamic of the way that a family or a couple or a friendship could look like. And more importantly, for those of you that watch us and listen to us, we're going to speak of what we think is important.
Right.
And our faith is the number one thing that we're always going to go back to. And these life groups are centered to obviously talk about our faith and to talk about what we believe in. And if you're interested in it, like we mentioned before, DM us.
Yes, send us a message,
Send us a message.
And I think I wanna piggyback off of that porque para los que no, for those of you that are probably struggling with their faith or they're struggling with life, just life in general. It doesn't have to be faith, or relationship, but just life. You're tired of doing the same thing, getting the same results. You're tired of living in depression and in anguish and anxiety. You're tired of living in unbelief. Because trust me, unbelief is tiring. Unbelief, it's hurtful. You're tired of living in hate. You're tired of living in the past.
No hope.
You're tired of living without hope, hopeless, helpless. You're tired of all that, You're tired of feeling that void that no matter what travel or what experience you get, it just doesn't feel it. It's not going to fill the void, having, traveling, having the best clothing, having the best pictures on Instagram, doing whatever you think you can, and it's just not filling that void. These are the perfect settings, the perfect environments in which you can learn a different way that I can guarantee will fill that void. Amen. Will feel that sadness, that hatred, that living in the past, that depression. And now I'm not saying that it's going to be quick. Maybe, because God knows how he works. But it will be a transition and it will be a journey. But you'll come out of it, and I can guarantee it, better than how you started. 100%. And so these are the perfect moments, the perfect settings for all of you to take advantage, to reach out to us, to maybe you already know someone. Maybe you already know a different church, a different doctrine, different denomination, and they're meeting someone. Go, investigate. God is there. I think, when was it, 2 episodes ago, where we were talking about God's love and how God's love is always there. It's here. And it's up to us to reach out, because God, in his loving way, he gives us free will to choose him, free will to choose his love. So if it's always there, guys, maybe this is that little step that you can take to reach for it.
And if you've been ever hurt by the church, this is, I think, an even better opportunity to try out, because a lot of the times people who have been hurt by the church or some sort of bad experience find it difficult to step back into the building. But when you're stepping into a home, it's a very different world. It's a home. Mm-hmm. It's a family. It's a group of a less group of people. There's no cliques.
No.
There's no, this is this team and that team and these titles or whatever. We're all the same, and we're all gathering for the same thing. We want to grow as people. We want to better ourselves. We want to, find an answer for the prayers that we've been praying for, and I do want to take the time to also say, if you are one of those that tends to watch our podcast and you're like, I'm not a Christian and I'm never going to be a Christian, how do I relate to y'all? Think about your home life and think about what you do in a way to bring it back to actually what matters. We are choosing to go back to the homes and save our homes because we believe that in today's generation, the world is against the family dynamic. The world is against marriage. The world is against that peace in a home. But that's not just something that is happening for the Christian home. It's happening all across the world. Look at, the shootings that are happening in the world. That happens to a Christian family and that happens to a person that doesn't know anything about God. These kinds of things that we see in our world, there's trouble. There is people who, I work in a field where I constantly see patients who are suffering from anxiety, and it's insane the amount of children and teenagers that you see that are suffering from anxiety, from depression. You can't say that is just a Christian problem that is attacking Christian home. It's attacking all of our homes. And so if you don't walk away from this saying, okay, I'm going to join a life group, then ask yourself, what am I doing to bring back a level of peace in my home? What am I doing to bring a sense of communication and connection with my spouse and my children, with my siblings, with my parents? What am I doing to put down the phone and disconnect from social media and come back to what's really important in life? If right now the satellites were to burst or whatever and we don't have any access to Instagram and TikTok and Facebook or Be Real nowadays, what do I have in my home? What do I have as far as quality relationships in my life? What does my relationship look like with my spouse? Have I dealt with some of the issues that we've been dealing with? Have I considered what's going on in my children's lives or in my parents' lives, and etc.? And so at the core of all of this, what the life group is trying to achieve is restoration of the family, restoration of the couple, of the home, of the self. And so that is what we're trying to, promote and preach. And we're excited to see how this goes.
Yes. And, just one last call for those of you that are in that transition of, should I open one? Should I support one? Should I attend one? Do it. We need to be hurting for the world. We need to be hurting for those that are hurting because they have an absence in their heart and in their lives. Y qué mejor hacer algo que not only is it going to bring us closer to God and by default joy that only comes from Him, but also que en la eternidad Dios nos va a decir, ¿qué pasó?
Right.
Dame cuentas. Y podemos decirle, mira, hice esto y esto y esto. Y no te estoy mintiendo porque tú lo sabes todo. And so let's open our homes, guys. Let's attend one. Let's support one. Let's be committed. I know we talked about accountability and everything, and we all, make mistakes and we all lacked accountability at some point, but that's something that we can learn to achieve, and I think it's very, very much achievable. So let's do that, guys. Thank you so much for being with us today. We truly appreciate you. Again, I think this is like the 10th time that we reiterate this. If you're interested, please send us a DM, an email, a smoke signal, whatever, so that we know that, you're interested and we can tend to your needs. All right. So God bless you guys.
Bye.
Bye.